I haven't been following it too closely, but I understand that there was an attempt by the elite, the to seduce India by offering leaders of Indian descent for the United States and for the UK. The problem is that there's such a tiny minority. It's kind of a not really logical, but that's what was behind him being pushed that way. But it didn't work because he just didn't have the
So the
mojo.
World Economic Forum was behind him as well, correct? I mean, he was a young leader in the World
Yeah,
Economic Forum. He's on the site. Is he a globalist?
yeah, and they were using people like him to try to seduce India into their camp. But India
So
is
what is Vivek up to now? He's endorsing Trump. He's all over Trump. He's a cheerleader. He's at his rally. What is he's kind of hard to figure out.
yeah. I'll be honest, I haven't been following it that closely, but I'm understanding that there is a consensus that Trump is needed to carry out the big house cleaning that has to take place in the United States.
Trump
And
is
he's
needed.
going along with it because he doesn't want to. It's like when you have one of these medieval battles and you realize a lot of that the one side's winning, so everybody switches to that side to avoid getting hung. It's sort of like that, I think, is the way to
Ah,
look
so
at
you
it.
think that's what Vivek is doing?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's yeah. Because what do you think of these? Do you think these conservative personalities, let's say Candace Owen, there's quite a few other ones that get behind people like Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy. Are these people just naive, or are they? Do they not know the war that's at hand here, or are they just plants? I'm trying to figure these people out. Why
I
would
don't
they all of a sudden just switch over and decide to stop going MAGA, stop going with Trump, and go with Vivek or Ron DeSantis? What's the logic behind this, or are they plants?
they always have plants on both sides and they identify themselves by their behavior, which is what's happening now. They're hoping to have a controlled opposition. It didn't work. So now they're all trying to somehow suck up to Trump in order to avoid themselves being killed.
That's what it is. So
It is.
is that what Vivek is doing right now? He's sucking up because he knows, well, this is bad. This is bad
Yeah.
news. It looks like Trump's going to win this.
And I think he wants to disassociate himself with the World Economic Forum.
Wow. So he was
Because
hoping, so they were probably hoping that Trump's charges would lead to be him being convicted, and then one of them would be lifted up on a pedestal and would run for president, but it doesn't look like that's happening. So now they're freaking out, and now Vivek has decided to join the
I
Trump
mean,
team, right?
basically, what's happening is you have it's not going to be decided in the courts because they each have their own puppet judges, and it's nothing to do with justice. It's gonna, at the end of the day, it's gonna require men with guns to fight this out. That's the only way it's going to happen, and I think that is happening already.
Explain that. You're talking about military
Okay, well,
tribunals.
I'm talking about, yeah, military war crimes tribunals. It's the only answer. We're going to have the military come in because these spurious court cases, it's like, how long has this been going on now? For literally, many years. They're talking about, the Trump P dossier, and then the Hunter Biden, and there's like throwing it back and forth at each other, and nothing happens. So it's going to be, it's like it's time to actually get kinetic at this point. There's no other answer.
So where do you see this going 2024? Do you see, obviously I don't see an election. I know that I think the Democrats at this stage of the game cannot believe, and the Rhinos cannot believe that Trump is still here. That everything they thrown at him has failed. He's still here. What do they do next? They have to unplug, don't they? They have to cause some kind of black swan event.
They've been trying. There's a lot of talk about something in April. That's the beginning of the Hebrew New Year. They put out stuff about how there's going to be a solar eclipse on that day, and it's going to go cause a huge earthquakes. And here in Japan, they're saying the same thing about this big a big earthquake in Japan at the same time. So they're making threats in an attempt to stay alive. That's the way I look at it. But I really don't think the 2024 election is going to happen. I think there's going to be some kind of black swan event before that, and hopefully it will be the military announcing that civilian governments have been taken over by gangsters, and that it's military intervention is required in order to restore real democracy and real freedom of the press and real rule of law, which is a joke now, especially in the United States.
So America will be ground zero for this Black Swan event.
It's sure looking that way, and everything I'm hearing
What?
about it. But the problem is, these people know that their actual necks are on the line, and they're trying very, very hard to start World War III, and it's not working. I just talked to a North Korean representative yesterday, and they said, we understand that the Americans want to start World War III, and we're not going to let it happen in the Korean Peninsula. The Chinese are saying the same. We're not going to let it happen in Taiwan. I also talked to the Iranians, and they say, no, we're going to put these people in war crimes tribunals, but we're not going to let them fool us into starting World War III. So their whole idea of using World War III as a get out of jail free card is not working, and they're freaking out big time.
So World War III is failing, and I mean
Yeah,
we can see it.
yeah.
So
Nobody being fooled by this anymore.
so the cat's out of the bag. They know what they're trying. So there's really no options left. There's really no options left unless the only option I can see is kind of like you're losing the chess game and you just throw the chessboard and say, fuck it. Like, I mean, maybe
Well,
activate the immigrants. I don't know.
they've been trying that, but you notice that all these immigrants that came in, they got their money cut off. You see that? So they're digging through garbage cans. They're going door to door begging. Somebody cut off the money that was coming to them from the Federal Reserve Board. So that's being they put the kibosh on that. The German AfD party, which is about to take power, says they're going to evict all of them and send them back to their countries of origin because they're, I mean, what's the point of
Who said
having
that? Who's going to evict them?
the German right wing AfD party said it's going to, and they're surging in the polls. They're probably going to take power, and they're saying they're going to send them all back. It's going to round them up, send them back to their countries of origin.
Not America. You're not talking about America. You're talking about Germany.
This is a European thing, and I think
Okay.
something similar has to take place in the United States. My view is that if they're working, as a dishwasher or whatever, fine. If they're just hanging around doing nothing or committing crime, kick them out.
Oh, I'm telling you, here in El Paso, we go downtown, and I just recorded a whole bunch of them. I said, I asked them, "Donde eres? Where are you from?" They said, "Venezuela." I said, "What are you doing here?" No trabajo, nothing. They're here just hanging out on the streets, just hanging out, plotting
Yeah,
and planning where they can get their next hit, their next fix. I know. I was raised on both sides of the border. I know this type of thinking. So that's what they're doing. And I'm just wondering what kind of effort is this going to take to actually round up all these people? And I mean, what a massive amount of engineering and ingenuity is this going to take to get them out of the country? I don't understand where you even begin on this.
well, I mean, Trump did authorize the Insurrection Act, and it's going to take the National Guard and the military. But it's not that difficult because they're not an army. They're not armed. They don't have cannons or tanks or airplanes or anything. And at the end of the day, it's just a police operation, but it'll require a lot of manpower. And it will happen because these people they're not actual economic migrants. Most of them were hired and paid to come for some kind of campaign which is failing. They were supposed to be, we have witness reports from these people saying that they were given a debit card and were told to go, and they were getting $2,000 a month, and they were told to go into the United States and stand by and wait for orders. And what I think was happening is that the people I call the Khazarian mafia, who aren't Jewish, but anyway, who are very powerful, realized that the Native American peoples, and I'm talking about not just First Nations, but white people and people who are Americans from like way back, were not going to were going to revolt, and they needed an army of foreigners. They're hoping to suppress them, and that's not working. It's blowing up in their faces.
So I guess the first thing that's going to happen here with America is a Black Swan event is going to happen, and then shortly after, that's going to be. Do you foresee? Let me just get this. You foresee you foresee a black swan event happening around April? Because I just had on David Snedeker and Mike King, who study the Q boards, and they go to the Ingersoll Lockwood sites and they do all this stuff, and they're predicting around March 31st something's going to hit. And could it be virus X? Do you see a virus X, another pandemic?
No, they've been trying ever since Bush Jr., staged the coup d'etat back in 2000, to kill us with diseases, and something has stopped it. I mean, they tried it with Ebola, they tried it with swine flu, they've been trying it with everything, and it's not working. And this disease X will also not work.
But do you think they're going to try?
They're going to try, but it's not going to work. And what will happen, I think the most likely scenario will be the military will cut off the internet for a while and force people to go out and look at the world with their own eyes. And they have the technical capability to do it. I've heard that a single Aegis destroyer has the capability to shut down all electronic communications around the planet. That's how powerful the technology is. So I'm guessing that a likely scenario, if there's a military government installed, that they will temporarily shut down all the ATMs, the internet, everything, and tell people the truth and then reboot the system. That's what I'm hoping for.
But do you see the military? I've also heard that the Democrats will be the ones to first call in the military. They're going to be the first ones to initiate the Black Swan event, and then they'll call in the military, and then that's when the jujitsu move happens and the magic happens. Am I right in saying that, or am I off?
They are both trying to seduce the military into their camp, and there are definitely a lot of black hats in the military. But the thing, for example, Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary, has been missing in action for 2 weeks, and what I was told by MI6 was that he was planning a Operation Northwood style false flag operation to set up military law, but for the Democratic part.
So he was getting ready to. So the White Hats took him out then.
Yeah, that's right. He was arrested, and I think they're now trying to prepare a rubber mask phony to replace him. But watch out, because if he appears, try to compare the new one with the old one, and see if you can't. Because these rubber mask technologies are so good now. But he was taken out, and so was Eric Smith, the head of the top Marine general. So that attempt has failed, and they won't control the military. I'm sure of it. And the other point is that worldwide, globally speaking, the United States military right now is in deep trouble because they don't have money. If they had a war with China, they say they would run out of ammunition in a week. So they're really just waiting for, to a new paymaster, and then they will obey whoever that is. So the fight is really about control of the top of the financial system, and that's where the real battle is taking place.
You don't see a false flag event happening somewhere in the Middle East or the Red Sea where maybe one of our carriers gets struck and then that propels us into war?
The Mossad what motto is, wage war through deception. But what these people forgot, they didn't, read the story about the boy who cried wolf. And everybody got fooled by 911, or most people anyway, including myself. But now the cat's out of the bag. And so, for example, when Netanyahu said that this big show in Gaza, this genocide in Gaza, was Israel's 911, nobody believed him, not even the Israelis. Only 9% of Israelis think he's winning there. So they can't, they can't do this anymore. Even if they sink a destroyer, nobody's going to be fooled. Everybody know who did it, and it's not going to be the Iranians. It's going to be directed out of Tel Aviv or New York, not out of some other Middle Eastern country. Nobody's going to be fooled.
Do you see Netanyahu being charged with war crimes and ultimately facing a death penalty or something like that?
I don't think he'll make it to trial. I think he'll be taken. I've been told from very high level sources that he's got less than a month to live.
Really?
Yeah.
What about let's change gears here for a second. There's a lot of exposing happening right now. I want to get your thoughts on this. What the hell were those tunnels under the synagogue in New York? I mean, are you familiar with this? Did you follow the
Oh
story
yeah,
at
oh
all?
yeah. Look, here's what they found. They found what's called a mitzvah, which is a bath. I was told this by high-level Jewish sources, right? That it what you carry out a sacrifice, and in this case, it's almost certainly a child. You torture the
Yeah.
child to death, and then you ejaculate. And then you get into this bath to purify yourself before eating the flesh of this child, and that's what they found in there. And FBI statistics show that 40,000 children go missing every year in the United States and never come back. I mean, there are 400,000 runaways. Most of them are back in 2 or 3 days. 40,000 disappear forever. The U.S. government itself has said that between January 2020 and July 2023, 85,000 undocumented immigrant children went missing. These people, they torture children to death in order to harvest something called adrenochrome, and that's been going on an industrial scale, and that was what was uncovered in those tunnels. That's why they're freaking out, because they know that if people find that out, that's just way too way
But but
too much.
but Ben, Michael, the question for me now is, okay, that's just one synagogue in New York. I don't think I'm reaching too far here when I say, could they be under all synagogues
I
or
was told there's a huge network of tunnels connecting all the synagogues, and that the main entrance is something called the Children's Museum in New York. So yeah, this is big
all the
stuff.
synagogues in New York? But you're just talking about New York, correct?
Yeah, it's. I'm sure there's similar things around the world. I know that in Japan, I was told previously, whistleblowers claim and said that they've been had a quota of 16,000 children they had to hand over for sacrifice every year. This is what's being uncovered. This is way beyond the normal political stuff. This is, a whole different level of bad we're dealing with here now.
And what I don't throw, I have Dustin Nemos on my show sometimes, and he says, he has his thoughts about the Jewish people. I have to say that I'm not in that camp, but what level of Jews would you say are bad control doing this type of child sacrifice and these
My own
rituals? Like,
best estimate from long years of dealing with these people, that of the 16 million Jews in the world, about 1 million are part of this cult of.
yeah, that's actually a big number.
Yeah, but that, and they go way back. If you look at the Book of Ruth in the Old Testament, where she was brought up as a child sacrifice, it's all there. But this has been going on for literally thousands of years. So we're dealing with the Canaanites or the Hyksos. Anyway, it's a subgroup. Most Jews have nothing to do with this, and they're the ones who are exposing it.
I agree with you. I have a lot of great Jewish friends. I grew up with them. I remember
I mean,
Shabbat
I'm
and
Jewish myself,
yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, exactly. And I like you, Ben. So there you go. So okay, so
and genetically Jewish. I mean, my thinking is it's not Jewish.
I
Okay,
got it. No, I understand totally. I totally get it. Um, I guess my next question would be, what do you feel, we need to prepare for right now? Like, what do we need? What about a month of food and water, a generator? How do we prepare? You're saying that there's going to be a blackout. That's what you're saying is the most realistic black swan
I
event.
think
You don't believe
okay.
the virus is going to hit, or do you think it's going to be an all-in-one type of thing? Boom.
I don't think it's going to be a virus, but I think it would be wise to have a certain amount of cash on hand in case the ATMs are shut down. And the other thing is that you don't have to buy expensive survival canned food. You can go and get a large sack of beans, a large sack of rice, and that'll keep your family for as long as it takes until they restore things if there is a shutdown. But I'm pretty sure that the military will make sure that they have contingencies to make sure everybody gets their groceries and their gasoline and stuff, even if stuff is shut down. But I would recommend having a supply of food like spaghetti, rice, beans, anything dried. It's not expensive, and some cash on hand just in
And
case.
probably
Another thing is, whatever is closest to you is most important. Check your own neighborhood, your own friends, all this kind of stuff. Make sure that's okay before you worry about stuff like China or things far away.
right. Yeah, and then also probably medicine too. You're probably gonna need about a month's worth of medicine,
Well,
whatever you're
maybe
taking.
antibiotics and
Or, but what I'm
something.
saying, if people are
Yeah,
already on, they're on pills for, whatever disabilities they have or
I
illnesses
know.
they have.
I hate to say this, but I think 90% of people don't need their pills.
I
I'll
don't
be
hate to
honest.
say it. I agree with you.
I
I
think
agree
that
with you.
they're being conned by the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, you need like 30% of what they sell is just some form of heroin, or opium.
I agree
And
with you.
I think the real one that is useful is antibiotics, and there's some other things, but for most people, they probably don't need the medicine they're taking.
So we're looking at right now a black swan event probably to hit the first quarter of the year.
That's what it's looking like, and
Hmm.
hopefully I'm pretty sure it'll be a military white hat operation, but we've got to let it watch it happen. But the other thing that people really need to understand is that uh, it's the rest of the world is already shaking this people off. So it's really like the United States right now is sort of like Nazi Germany towards the end of World War II. They're isolated, and the rest of the world's already liberated themselves, and it's really we're near the end game. I think finally.
What do you think is going to happen with Zelensky? I mean, I think he's taking off
He's a
this.
war criminal and a mass murderer, and he'll probably get the death penalty.
He's trying to work some deal with Switzerland right now, isn't he? A
He's
peace
trying to
deal with
find a
Russia.
place to hide, but there's nowhere on this planet he can hide. The Swiss shut down the UN headquarters in Geneva. Did you notice that? And the Swiss realized that they had all these transnational criminals hiding behind international organizations in Geneva, and they're pulling the plug on that. They had a new Swiss president in January, and this is leading to big changes. So they're not going to find anywhere to hide.
What about this Davos meeting that they're aren't they conducting that right now? Isn't that happening right now?
Yeah,
This
it's happening right now, and they're basically trying to figure out how they're going to prevent themselves from being hung from lampposts. That's why they're trying to
so
say,
they
"Oh,
they see that the tide has turned. They know they're in trouble.
oh yeah," they're saying it. They're saying we're dealing with an anti-system revolt, and they understand that their attempt to create a technocratic dictatorship run by them is failing. They know that, and what they're going to try to do is, show a nice face and hand out enough money to calm people down and hope that they can, restore their control later. That's my
But
guess.
that's not going to happen, correct? They're gonna
No,
meet their fate.
this systematic mass murder has to stop, and they're the ones behind it.
Is it going
Oh,
to be the military before Trump gets in, or will it be after? Will it be? When do you see this happening? When do you foresee this type of the arrests, the tribunals, the hangings, the guillotines, whatever it is? When do you foresee that? 2025, 2026, this year?
I think that between now and April will be a key time, and there's a lot of chaos is likely. We're dealing with these are desperate, very powerful, very intelligent people, and they're cornered, and they're going to try all sorts of nasty stuff. But I think that if the White Hats push, we can actually finish this year. I mean, I'm trying to get people to do that. I'm saying, look, you know, they've been proven to be serial mass murderers. They are the source of the world's terrorism and most wars and most of the other troubles, and that we need to put them out of business once and for all. And I think we're almost there. There's just the problem is they always compromise the very top people, top one, two, three. So you got to watch out for that. But
One,
the rank
one,
and file, even the colonels, they all know that something is rotten and it has to change. So I don't think they're going to be able to, top down order their way out of the situation this time.
what about the Epstein list? This is the last question I have for you. The Epstein list, or what's it looked like the documents were coming out and then it just went silent.
I mean,
Um,
I published that whole list years ago, and it,
are these
it,
people going to meet a fate? Are they going to meet a fate of jail or hanging? Or I mean, what these celebrities that are on
well,
the list? What
I
kind
mean,
of fate are they gonna get?
a
What's going to
lot
be
of them
their fate?
a lot of them have been killed. For example, I got very reliable intelligence that they intercepted a large shipment of adrenochrome, and they added some kind of poison to it and then let it be distributed. And that's why a lot of these Hollywood celebrities just vanished. They're not there anymore. Just
Wow.
look at the Oscar ceremonies from a few years ago to now. You'll see all these people gone.
That is crazy. You're saying that. I've heard the same thing from a different person. So the fact that you're telling me this right now, wow. I thought it was bullshit.
No,
It sounded too fantastical.
But I mean, you can check. I mean, just look at the Oscar ceremonies from a few years ago and compare it. They're all gone. The whole bunch
yeah,
of them.
You know, Tom Hanks ain't running his Twitter account. You know, I've heard Hillary's not running hers. I mean, it's really a huge conspiracy to believe, but there is something there.
You can, they've been trying to create the appearance of these people around, and they can do it very well with the rubber masks and the CGs and stuff. But, it can only go so far, and they're reaching the limits of how much they can pretend, life, it's business as normal. Their best hope is to have a massive, truth and reconciliation event where they confess to, torturing kids and all that, and say they were born into it, and then ask for forgiveness. That's their best hope.
And I don't think that's going to go over too well.
I know, but if you're born into these families and either you do it or you get killed yourself, what choice do you have? So I think at some point we need to move forward and not look backwards, but the world has to be told they have to confess, and then
I agree.
Hope that they will be forgiven. Hope is all I'm saying, guaranteed.
Ben, where can people find you?
BenjaminFulford.net. Please support my work and allow me to keep trying to get information from primary sources. In other words, stuff that you won't find anywhere else.
Got it, man. Benjamin, I appreciate you coming on. I love it, man. Thank you so much. You're a pleasure to talk to, man.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you again next week.
And swear by my name, like they taught my people of Israel to swear by Baal. If they do not obey, I will utterly pluck up and destroy that nation. They're all listed in this prophecy written 3,000 years ago by the prophet Asaph. Asaph was a worship leader for King David, but we're also told he was a seer or prophet. 2 Chronicles 29, verse 30. And he, at a time when Israel was, had one, the Arab peoples had, over the diaspora, had gone into the promised land of Israel. It was called Palestine in 135 AD. It was renamed Palestine. Never was really a country. It was always loosely defined borders, depending on whoever controlled the area. But it was called Palestine, and then in 1948, it became Israel. And so he was saying, I'm going to pluck out the evil neighbors from what is now going to be called Israel, put them back into their ancient homelands. And I'm going to pluck the Jews out who were living in some of those Arab countries there, lands, and bring them back into what is now going to be called Israel. So we saw that happen in 1948. Now, what he had to do, the Ottoman Empire had controlled the Middle East from 1517 to 1917. There could be no Arab states or Israel with them having control over that area. So in World War I, they got defeated, the Ottoman Empire, the Turks. And all of a sudden we find in the 20th century, the Arabs starting to get their states back. So for instance, Egypt was 1922, got its statehood. Saudi Arabia and Iraq were 1932. Iran, formerly Persia, was called Iran in 1935. Lebanon, 1943, Jordan and Syria, 1946, and then along comes Israel, 1948. So we see.
To Doge just for a second. Earlier, the subcommittee headed by Chairman Marcia Taylor Greene, her and her staff discovered $2.7 trillion in improper payments to Medicare, Medicaid, overseas, to people who should not have gotten it. Some in this room might have missed that press conference. Can you elaborate on what the president is thinking at this point?
Well, again, that's another example. There's a very long list of the fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge is identifying on a daily basis. Elon Musk also talked about yesterday about Social Security payments that are going out the door for people who are no longer with us. Unfortunately, I would say that is certainly fraud. There's also a lot of contracts they've identified that, just as a hypothetical example, are $1 million, but only 500,000 went out the door. So where's the rest of that cash? And so that's the thing. Those are the things that DOGE is working on every single day. And I would just remind everybody in this room, this is what President Trump campaigned on doing. He's delivering on a promise that 70